Well, welcome everybody. It's nice to see many of you again. So, as some of you already are aware what this is all about, but it's really about sharing solutions to problems and issues that keep business owners and CEOs up at night. And in my Vistage group, the number one issue is hiring, retaining, and onboarding top talent. So today I am really happy to introduce my guest, Erin Dugan with Talent Trust. Now, Talent Trust is a strategic partner with Vistage Worldwide, and Erin is a director within Talent Trust. So, Erin, just briefly tell me about Talent Trust. And what the question I always like to ask is for my trusted advisors, what problems do you solve as a company?
Yes, we solve the problem of people, really. In order for businesses to grow and achieve their goals, they need to have the talent to do so. And that means they have to be able to recruit and retain the talent to achieve the goals. What they don't need is a revolving door, right? Finding talent can be challenging, finding the right talent can be challenging, and then keeping your top talent can also be challenging. And we put processes in place to help business owners and leaders recruit and retain the talent that they need to go in the direction they're headed.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. And it's very timely that we're speaking today because one of the issues came up in my Vistage group I thought was a very interesting question, and it happens to be in the name of Talent Trust.
Yeah.
So the question was, how do you know to trust a new employee? And so I think that gave everybody a bit of pause. And I thought, well, I knew I was going to speak to you today, so I'll put that out to you.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's important to remember that trust is earned and trust is built. It doesn't just happen overnight. Um, it's as you're interviewing candidates and trying to decide whether you're going to extend an offer for them to join your team, it's unrealistic to think you're going to trust them 100% when you make that offer. You barely know this person, right? You've spent maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple of months interviewing them, getting to know them to determine if they can contribute value to your organization, but you're probably not going to trust them 100% when they get there. Now, there are tools that you should absolutely use in your selection process and interviewing process that will help you determine if this person has integrity, has actually done the things that they protest to have done, and are worthy of trust. You should use those things: assessments, really good interviews, references, interaction with your current team. You should do those things in the interview process, but you're still not going to be 100% able to trust. So when they join, what we would recommend is that you put clear expectations in place over those first 6 months, and then have ongoing communication about how the new hire is achieving those or not achieving those, right? Trust is often built through communication and getting to know each other and having a relationship. And you're going to need a lot of that in the first, especially 6 months that a new hire is with you. And through that, trust will be built.
That's great. Hey, you just mentioned one thing, and let me just ask just a quick question here: use of assessments, because I know a lot of our viewers may use them, but I think a lot of people are not totally aware that you can use assessments to do some of the things that you're talking about. So, just a couple of assessments, not a lot of depth, but just give us a little overview of a couple that you've used that you know would be helpful.
There are so many wonderful assessment tools out there. There are so many options to choose from. When you're choosing a tool, we would recommend that you use one that is data validated and can be used in selection, okay? Not all assessment tools are that, and you can open yourselves up to a lawsuit if you're using the wrong tool in selection. So tools that are data validated and predictive, that are great for selection and can be used post-hire for ongoing growth and team building, are Predictive Index, which a lot of our Vistage friends know. Preview, Prevue, is an excellent tool that we use at Talent Trust all the time. Wiley, as we all know, has a number of great tools. The Profile XT we've used for
Yes.
many, many years, and it's also excellent. Post-hire, so not in selection, but post-hire. Great assessments you could use just in post-hire would be the DISC, great tool. Gallup Strength Finders, also great post-hire assessment tools.
Great. Very, very helpful. While we're talking about trust, one of the other questions that comes up a lot is how do you build a culture of trust where employees trust each other, willing to be a little bit vulnerable so they can ask the difficult questions and work together to solve problems and don't always come off as having all the answers. How do you really build? And I know this is complicated, but maybe you just could share some best practices of how you begin and how you maintain the overall employee culture of trust.
The word you use, maintain, is key to this, David, because it's not going to be a check the box. Oh, we've got a culture of trust. Now we're done. It has to be an everyday, all the time effort in building a community of trust. And so there's two things I would say here. Number one, it's helpful to think of your culture as in the context of a community within your organization, right? So every organization has a culture. You feel it when you get there. It can be difficult to put words to. It's like air around you. It's the soul of the organization, but it's difficult to define. But it's part of the community of the company, right? We are all involved in communities in our lives. And post-COVID, many employees are looking to join companies and leaders who make them feel part of a community. And it's harder to quit a community than to quit a company too, right? So if you can focus on building a community of people who are there to serve each other and serve a common purpose, that can be more impactful than culture. And it's also a little easier for the whole organization to understand. So trade out culture for community as you think about this and talk about this, and that might help you to plan. That'd be number one. Number two is going to be transparency. It's absolutely going to be transparency, and that's part of communication. So in a post-COVID world, I mean, so many employees and companies were caught unawares in 2020, and organizations that you wouldn't think would behave in certain ways behaved in certain ways, right? And so trust was broken in some cases, and candidates and employees in the world are a little less willing to trust an employer based on some of the things that they may have experienced. The organizations that are trustworthy are more able to attract and retain talent than those that are not. But you build trust by sharing in full transparency where we are today, where we're going, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups, the downs, the whole thing. If you share that in full transparency, they're more likely to trust what you say and head in the direction with you and be part of the solution versus part of the problem. It can be difficult to share in full transparency. We would encourage you to do so. Transparency does build trust. And then when things change, you have to communicate that too, right? When you've said, hey, we're going to match our 401k this year, and then it doesn't happen because revenue or profitability isn't where you wanted it to be, it's okay. It's okay, but you need to be transparent and come back and close that loop on what has happened so that there's not, things unsaid. Nobody's going to trust you if things are left unsaid or there's confusion.
I get it. That's great. Thanks for that. You've been involved with Vistage in and around for many years and a great partner, strategic partner with Vistage. So any observations about what you see Vistage members and helping them solve what keeps them up at night? Anything you want to share briefly?
Yeah, we love the Vistage community. Kathleen Quinn-Vota, who's our founder and CEO here at Talent Trust, has been a member since 2008, and Talent Trust has been a sponsor and speaking in the Vistage community since 2015. So it's been quite a long time. With Vistage, we always strive to provide resources There are so many resources, best practices in recruiting, best practices in interviewing, which assessment to look for, best practices in onboarding, all of these things, there are resources out there. But what we find is common among the Vistage members. They have great organizations that people would love to work for, would feel welcomed into. Vistage members by nature are lifelong learners, they're open-minded, they're growth mindset kinds of people, and so many employees want to work for those kinds of people. But it's difficult to find them, right? So if you're a construction company, Vistage member construction company with less than 100 employees, let's say, and you're competing for talent with Hensel Phelps or Kiewit or the big names out there, you need to make sure that those top talent, the top talent out there can find you, right? You have to be findable. This comes down to employment brand, sales and marketing, broad reach and recruitment, so that those people who would love to work in your nimble organization or are not interested in the huge machines or whatever that may be, that they can find you. And that is often a challenge we see for Vistage members. Great opportunity for candidates, but they just can't find and connect that. And that's what we help them do.
Oh, that's great. I can see why you've been such a great resource for Vistage, and Vistage is just lucky to have so many resources for people that are out there. It's a little lonely sometimes at the top for business owners and CEOs, and you can see that you provide quite a service. So if somebody should want to connect with you, Erin, and learn a little more about Talent Trust, how would they get in touch with you?
Yes, thank you, David. And Vistage is so lucky to have you too, the Vistage chairs. I know I have so many members tell me like I would not have been able to accomplish in my business what I did without my Vistage peer group and my chair. You know, it's very, very powerful community. But I'm always happy to offer free advice. We'll talk to anybody about my favorite topic in recruitment and retention. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm out there. ERIN, and then my last name is DOUGAN. You can email me at Talent Trust, E as in Erin, DOUGAN at TALENTRUST. There's only one T in the middle. Or call me. Call me on my cell phone anytime, 720-456-5959.
Well, that's great. Well, these short time together goes even quicker than the amount of time we have. So we got to sign off. But thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it. And good to see many of you again. And take care.
Thank you, David.